question that I will seek to answer in this video is what is soul making and why is it important, and what are the limits of psychology in therapy that cause it to be less effective, and how do we go through an internal process of experiencing the world with greater degrees of beauty, soulfulness, um, and love and freedom, and why is that the most challenging, hardest thing to do in this life, but also the most worthy, meaningful thing to do in this life. So let's dive right in. So essentially, what I want to talk about today is what is soul making. So soul making is actually a word that um, was my teacher Rob Berbea has talked about it. He essentially, I don't want to say popularized it because he didn't really even popularize it. It's still pretty niche, but it's essentially from the lineage of Henry Corbin. So it's Henry Corbin, and it's James Hillman. So and then it's Ibn Arabi. So there's this Sufi mystic that created this idea of mundus imaginalis, which Henry Corbin was. He a student. He studied it. He popularized this idea of the imaginal. And Henry Corbin was kind of like he worked with Carl Jung pretty closely, and then he influenced this guy James Hillman, which is within the last 100 years. I think Henry Corbin was like 1950s. James Hillman was also like 60s or 70s or something. He was influenced by Corbin, and he kind of took it further and tried to develop this idea of the imaginal world, or sensing with soul, or soul making. And then Rob Berbea is a Buddhist meditation teacher that basically had deep Buddhist contemplative insight, and then he realized that there's a limit to just the end goal of the Buddhist practice and the path, and that you can actually live a more full, beautiful life when you can tune into desire, eros, soul, and actually work with them. You see that they aren't literally real, but you can see that it's important to work with them in that way. And so this is fundamentally the lineage here. But what is soul making? So soul making is experiencing the world with greater degrees of soul. So you can think of this as, and if you don't love the word soul, bear with me here. Think of a jazz musician. Think of closing your eyes, or close your eyes. Imagine being at like a jazz music show. What does it feel like? It's alive. It's changing. It's morphing. The music just feels right, but there's something there. There's soul there. Now think of listening to like some rap music or something. Now I'm not saying there's no soul music has rap music has no soul, but I'm saying a lot of it has no soul. But think of like some like really bad music, and how you're just like, oh, get away from me. Whereas soulfulness, you're like the rap music, or the soulless music. Let's just say that you're like, oh, you're trying to push it away. Whereas the jazz music or the soulful music, some amazing lyricist or jazz, you like want to, you close your eyes and you want to go deeper into it. But it's not like give me more money. It's not like I need more of this. It's like, that's nourishing the being. My there's a nourishment where there's a beauty to it, and that beauty, it just feels right, and I want more of it at the same time. That's what soul making is. It's realizing that you can relate to the world from a place of, I am in love with the beauty of this thing. I'm feeling my soul is being nourished by this thing. And also, there's more to explore here. I want to explore the other degrees of soul. So that's fundamentally what I want to talk about here. So soul making, and okay, let's start with where psychology goes wrong. Where psychology goes wrong is it tends to take our experience and it one dimensionalizes it. It explains it in one conception, one frame, and it says this is how it is, right? And so the best example here is you go into a therapy session, you come in with your suffering, and the therapist says, this is because, like, let's dive into your childhood. Let's figure out the reason you're suffering is because in your childhood this happened, and boom, that's the reality, and it imparts and it reifies. This is the reality of the situation. You suffered in this way, and you were traumatized in this way, and now your experience of suffering, you are experiencing suffering because of it, and it reduces all of your suffering to, we need to fix this trauma. Or maybe it says attachment style. I'm not saying this is the only way that therapists work. They use a lot of different frames, but writ large, I have noticed that they take the experience, like, you have an attachment disorder, you have anxious attachment, that's a reality, and we need to fix it. Or you have, let's use parts work, internal family systems. You have all these parts inside of you. Some of them need love, and your experience right now is parts work, right? But it doesn't necessarily see that when I relate to things as, I need to solve this, like, when I relate to my experience as, I have trauma and I need to solve it, that one reduces my experience down to a very literal thing. My brain chemistry is off, therefore this. Or I experienced childhood trauma, therefore that's why I'm suffering, and now I go into fixing mode. I need to go and I need to fix this. I need to fix this. And it takes something that could be seen as sacred, that could teach us something that's alive, and then it makes it dead, it kills it. And it says, your experience isn't alive, it isn't changing, it isn't morphing, it's this thing, it's dead, it's childhood trauma, and now we need to go in there like a fucking surgeon, and we need to fix this childhood trauma, right? And then once you do, you'll feel better, right? And it's kind of perpetuating this same medical model of, you have a problem, let's diagnose it, we have some tools to fix it, but instead of the tools being psychiatric medication, the tool is internal family systems, or attachment theory work, or parts work, or there's a million fucking tools that therapists use, but it's in this logos, and we'll talk about that probably not in this video, in a future video, but there's this logos, this conceptual framework, that what it is that we're doing right here, right now, is we are diagnosing, identifying trauma, and we are fixing it so that we can experience less suffering, right? But what I'm trying to get at here is that is ineffective for many, many reasons. One, it literalizes it. This is your thing. It is real. And fundamentally, the core insight of Buddhism is this. So there's this concept in Buddhism called dependent origination. And basically it says that how you see something determines how it reveals, how you look at something, how it reveals itself to you. So how you look at something determines how it will reveal itself to you. So what does this mean? This means that, do I actually have childhood trauma? Now, I'm not going to say you don't. I don't want to discredit this, because our goal isn't to just reduce it into this new model or say, yes, there could be something traumatic that did happen. Let me move this. There could be something traumatic that did happen, and it did cause suffering, and it is this past thing, condition, is influencing your present experience, and it's causing you suffering. That could be very true. But what I'm trying to get at is the best way to work with that to then go and try to analytically, like a surgeon, go figure out what happened so we can fix it? Or could we realize that when we view our experience through this lens, we're actually constructing and reifying and reaffirming that this trauma happened, it is bad, this is why I'm suffering. That actually perpetuates the experience of trauma and calcifies it, right? And so the goal isn't to let me see, go into dependent origination and what it is and how it works in this context. So the goal is not to the goal is to realize that the way that we view something influences what it is. So if I see that I view my experience through the lens of love, like this is God loving me, then I experience it as God loving me. If I view it through the lens of this is childhood trauma and it sucks, then I will view it as I am flawed because I have trauma and this sucks, right? So dependent origination means that what we are experiencing arises dependent on condition. When this is, that is, right? And so what does this mean on a practical level, right? It's not just like this abstract idea. It's the most deeply important idea of Buddhism, and it relates to soul making. When I see that my experience of life is dependent on how I look at it, when the frame that I'm putting onto my experience, not only so a lot of let me actually go here and let me go like draw a diagram here. What is that software called? Let me just use Figma actually. New FigJam, 1 second. So hold on. So what I'm trying to show you, this might be a lot of work. What I'm trying to show you is that we have this understanding of how reality works in Western society. Okay, let me do a new FigJam here. Okay, here we go. I got it. So we have this conception in the world, right? So we view it like this. This is objective reality. You know, this is you, and you are viewing objective reality, and you can hold different frames on it, but fundamentally you are just, there is a thing, objective reality, that exists, and you can maybe shape your experience of it. This kind of like stoicism, like what can I control, what, you know, it's like let me put a different lens on it. Maybe the lens is this is good for me, this is bad for me, whatever, and then I interpret the objective reality through that lens, and it changes my experience of it. Dependent origination is fundamentally something different. It says this is me, and it's not like I have this objective reality that is out there that I am interpreting. What dependent origination says is that the way that I view external reality actually changes fundamentally the thing itself. I don't know why I put that second arrow there. So like if I look at reality through the lens of trauma, it's not that that is one way to interpret things. It's that actually constructs, it builds the experience of trauma, and then I will experience it that way, and then that will come back in, and it's like this feedback loop where if I look at the world through the lens of childhood trauma, or we could interchange this with any lens, internal family systems or whatever, then that creates the experience of, let's just say, entrapment/trauma. I feel trapped, constricted, traumatized. And then that experience of being traumatized then reinforces the view of this as childhood trauma, and it makes it feel more real. Then I'm living in this fucking bubble. I'm living in this, oh shit, didn't mean to do that. I was trying to send it backwards. Oh yeah, wait, there we go. I'm living in this bubble, and then I'm like, this is how the world is, because this is how I experience the world. Everything that I experience in the world is being reinforced by my perception of it. And this is fundamentally how we go wrong as human beings, is we hold a view of how things work. It creates the experience of that thing. Then that experience of that thing reinforces the correctness of the view, and then we're trapped inside of this self-contained reality of this is what is real, this is how things work, etc. This is fundamentally our epistemology, right? We think that I view something, I have the experience, it validates how I view it, and that therefore that's how I know that it is true. But fundamentally what I'm trying to get at here is that the insight here that I'm trying to get at is that if you view something through a different lens, actually, let me go here. What you can do is you can hop between these. So you can see, oh, now if I view it through the lens of soul or sacredness, this suffering is sacred. It creates the experience of the suffering as sacred, as God, as love. I don't use the word God in this one, as sacred. And then that reinforces the experience as sacred. But what I am not saying here is that therefore you should go from this lens to this lens because this lens is more helpful. What I'm saying is that when you realize that this is when you do this, right? When you do this and you go, okay, this is my trauma. It's creating this experience of the world. I can go the rest of my life with viewing everything as trauma, and it will feel deeply true, and it will construct experiences that validate that. But now maybe I go into sacredness, and I view everything as sacred, and it will reify and construct experiences of sacredness for me, and I can go the rest of my life viewing that this is how things are. Everything is sacred. But you could also change this with everything is meaningless and made of matter. And then I will experience the world as material and nihilistic. And you can go the rest of your life in this frame that how things are is meaningless, made of matter, and then you'll experience life as material and nihilistic. The fundamental thing that I'm trying to talk about here is that soul making as a concept is realizing that this is what you're doing, and then it's realizing, and then it's choosing to play with different ways of perceiving, but not only like choosing, it's like letting different ways of letting different imaginal experiences. And I'll probably talk at length about this in future talks to try to make sense of it more deeply. But when you experience it in that way, what you can do is you can change how you can choose to play with these different realities. You can see that fundamental reality is just how you view it. So therefore, I'm going to choose to view it through different lenses. And then you can choose to change your experience of life dependent on the context. And now, like, different experiences, different contexts. Being with one person, one way of seeing might be most skillful. Being with a different person might be a different way of seeing. And so fundamentally, there is no algorithm, no logic, no formula here. The goal is, can I sit? Let's say I have suffering. It's best to work with your own suffering as it is right now. So I'm sitting, I have this suffering, I'm sitting with it, and can I relate to this suffering in a way that increases the degree of soul of it, that sees it as meaningful? And now, to see it as meaningful can mean a lot of different things, right? To see it as meaningful is I'm going to see this suffering as meaningful, and when I see it as meaningful, maybe the reason that it's meaningful is because it's revealing itself to me in this image. And now this is a very, very rudimentary understanding of soul making. I'm still unpacking soul making in my own life and my own experience, but I wanted to kind of pinpoint that dependent origination, how the world appears to us, is dependent on how we perceive it. Therefore, we can change how we perceive it, and the world will change fundamentally. Like, the fabric of it will change. The actual events and experiences that happen to us will change. Different experiences and events will happen to us depending on perceiving things differently. And that this is beautiful because it allows us the freedom to change our experience of life towards something more soulful and more beautiful. And now this is a very intro level, surface level understanding. But what I'm saying is that modern psychology does not do this. I think, in fact, the vast majority of humans on this planet don't do that. And this is not a value judgment. This is not better or worse. This is just saying that there is another possibility out there. There's a different way to relate to reality, to exist. It increases meaningfulness. And when you do that, you can see that When you understand this, life gets more beautiful, more sacred. You learn how to relate with a wider variety of people skillfully, right? One of the traps of like the new age group is I get in this lens like everything is childhood trauma or everything is Shiva and Shakti or whatever. And then you solidify this is it, you know? And then when you're with someone that doesn't get that frame, that doesn't understand that frame, you still talk about it with that frame, and that actually creates a degree of dissonance between you and the other person, and it's not helpful. So like if I one of the things that's been on my mind lately is like let's say I go into this hippie frame and I'm like, there's people talking about I don't know, soul making. I haven't actually met that many people who talk about soul making, but like, let's talk about yoga and Shiva and this and that and eye gazing and whatever. In that context, I can hold a frame that fits with that. I can see that they are constructing their own worlds, doing that they are dependent arisings, that I am a dependent arising, and then I can let whatever frame feels most helpful surface itself, and I can engage with that frame. Whereas if I'm in the frame of someone that's deeply conservative, I'm not going to try to teach them how to do soul making. I'm going to, where's my degree of compassion and love for people that are holding a deeply conservative worldview? How can I understand now in my own free time? I genuinely like, how do I understand this worldview more deeply, because I don't feel like I fully understand it. The liberal worldview makes more sense to me, but I see that if I hold it too tightly, I'm going to create dissonance with people that don't hold that worldview, and that's not skillful or wise. And so I'm like, how do I understand what drives someone that holds a different worldview, and I can feel care for that, and I can relate with that in a way that doesn't, wherever there's an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I try to force a worldview onto someone that doesn't hold that worldview, it's only going to create a stronger reaction. That's the fundamental insight. So the goal is, how do I relate with people that doesn't create that reaction, that cares wisely and skillfully about the unique, particular ideas, thoughts, intentions, experiences that they're having in the frames and the logos that they are using to understand their experience. And then how do I enter that context and participate in it in a way that's actually skillful and that leaves the other person feeling met, whether they use that terminology or not, feeling a degree of goodness and love that wasn't there before that, right? So this is a long-winded way of saying that this is a very beautiful concept. It's something I'm exploring. I hope that this inspired you in some way, that opened you up to a sense of the possibilities of like contemplating what is emptiness, the Western psychology, what is soul, and how can we relate to life less in a constricted way and more fluidly, and realize that there are different ways of perceiving what is happening, and there are an seemingly infinite different number of ways to perceive reality, and that life gets really beautiful when you allow yourself the freedom to move between different ways of perceiving, and that you realize that your identity is not fixed, the world is not fixed, phenomena are not fixed, experiences are not fixed, nothing is fixed, and that is the most beautiful freedom that any human can experience. And then playing with perception, playing with relationality, with relationships, etc., etc. So that is the fundamental insight. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day.